Hello everyone, this is Phrasal Verbs grammar lecture for S3 General English. Now this is the first time I've used this Explain Everything software, so I hope it goes smoothly. Okay, firstly, let's have a look at two dialogues. The first one in Hong Kong. Here we are. The student says, "When do we have to submit the homework?" The teacher, "You should have submitted it yesterday. Do I need to scold you every time for you to be more responsible?" Now let's have a look at that more or less the same dialogue with native speakers in British English. "When do we have to hand in the homework?" "You should have handed it in yesterday. Do I need to tell you off every time for you to be more responsible?" Now, what are the differences between those two dialogues? Please pause this recording whilst you identify them. Okay, I hope you have identified the differences. Okay, so I hope you can see in the Hong Kong dialogue they have used submit and scold as their verbs. And in the British English one, they have used hand in, handed it in, and tell you off. These ones here are the phrasal verbs. And native speakers use phrasal verbs in informal speaking and informal writing a lot. And it is very important to understand how they work, to use them in your own reading and speaking. Otherwise, you will not really be able to understand and use natural English. So this lecture is all about how to understand phrasal verbs. So, what are phrasal verbs? Well, phrasal verbs actually are chunks of language. Okay, here are some other examples. Excuse me, drive me crazy, according to, a long time ago. We can think of these as chunks of language because they're made up of more than one part and they normally go together. So, phrasal verbs are words that normally go together to make up one meaning, to make up one verb. So, for example, tell off, hand in, look up to. And these phrasal verbs can also be called multi-part verbs. Excuse me. And they're made up of a main verb. Whoops. Sorry, I'm using this for the first time. They're made up of a main verb, as in look and hand in and tell off, and then a particle. A particle means something small. In this case, it's either a preposition or an adverb or a combination of both. This would be classified as a preposition here. Okay, and this one would be classified as an adverb here. Okay. Now, we can classify multi-part verbs according to how we use them. And actually, we're going to focus on three types now. And these are how I've classified them on your Quizlet set. So, type 1 are intransitive. And that is, they cannot take an object. So we can't say the plane took off the runway. This is incorrect. We just say the plane took off. We can't say watch out the dog. We just need to say watch out. If we want to say what we're watching out for, we need to add a prepositional phrase, watch out for the dog. The second type are transitive, that is, they take an object. So we say apply for a job, look after a baby. Type 3 are transitive, that is, they take an object, and they're also separable. Okay, so you can see that the object in our examples here can go in different positions. Here we've got our meeting after the verb. Here our object goes between the main verb here and the particle there. We've also got it as a pronoun, our object as a pronoun, and in the same way it goes after the main verb, before the particle. In our second example, we have look up a word in a dictionary. So our object is a word after the phrasal verb, between the main verb and the particle. Come on. Okay. Now, NB, I don't know, do you remember what NB means from our last grammar lecture? It's from Latin, which means nota bene. And nota just means note. Bene means good or well. So it means note this well, remember. Okay, for type 3 multi-part verbs, if the object is a pronoun, then it must go between the main verb and the particle. Okay, so you can see in all of our examples where the object is a pronoun, here and here, it goes after the main verb and before the particle. Now, how does this relate to your textbook? If you turn to pages 170 and 171, you can see some of my notes here. You can see that type 1 here are the first examples here. These are the type 1s, okay, that are intransitive. And then the second set of examples are type 2. And then the third set of examples are type 3, and that's on page 171. Now, there are two verbs in your textbook, actually, which can be classified as type 4. That's look forward to and put up with. I've put them together with type 2 because that's the way they're presented in your textbook. They're in the type 2 section in your Quizlet set. Okay, but just so that you know, and for future reference as you get more advanced, type 4 multi-part verbs are transitive and inseparable. So they take an object, just like type 2. You can't separate them, unlike type 3. Okay, so the object comes at the end. Whoops. My holidays. Okay, I'm looking forward to my holidays. We cannot say I am looking my holidays forward to. All right. Put up with, and then this one, a heavy workload. So likewise, we cannot say students and teachers have to put a heavy workload up. All right. The object must go at the end. Okay, but these type of multi-part verbs have two particles following them. Now, we've been talking so far about how multi-part verbs can be used in a sentence, whether they have an object or not, whether they are separable or not. But we can also understand something about the different ways they work in terms of their meaning. Okay, so actually what we call phrasal verbs, okay, true phrasal verbs are idiomatic. That means they're like idioms. Here's an example of an idiom, all right? This is not a phrasal verb, but it's an example of an idiom. Okay, it's raining cats and dogs. Idioms we cannot understand from the individual parts of the verb. So it's raining cats and dogs does not mean literally that cats and dogs are falling down from the sky. What it means is that it's raining heavily. Okay, now phrasal verbs work in the same way. So when we say that the plane took off, here, we can't understand the meaning of the phrasal verb took off from the individual meanings of took and off. And likewise, we can't understand the meaning of watch and out of the phrasal verb watch out from the individual words watch and out. Okay, so this is true of type 1 and type 3. Okay, they are real true phrasal verbs you might find in a grammar book. Okay, this will tell you, oh my goodness, that's terrible. How do I get rid of that? Okay, this is going to be neater. Okay, so type 1 and type 3 are real phrasal verbs. Now, type 2, a little bit different. Okay, they are followed by simple preposition, and they can be understood from their individual words. They're just followed by a preposition. Okay, and the job of the preposition is to link the verb here and the noun here. So apply for a job. Okay, with phrasal verbs, they have an adverb, okay, following them. So this word here, this particle here, is classified as an adverb, okay, because it changes the meaning of the verb. All right? So that's important when you're looking, and you need to know when something is simply a prepositional verb and the particle that follows is simply doing the job of linking the noun and the verb, and when those particles actually change the meaning. And you can't guess the meaning. Well, you may be able to if you're really smart from the context, right? If you can't guess the meaning, then you have to look it up in a dictionary. Now, as you go forward with your language learning, you might notice something interesting, which is that sometimes a phrasal verb will use the same words as a prepositional verb, and it's the context that will tell you whether it's a prepositional verb, in which case the meaning is literal, like here, she ran down the hill, all right, literally, she's running down the hill, and here, where she ran down her husband, which means that she is criticizing her husband. Our second example, Linda and Julia fell out the window. And here, Martin and James, it's not Martin and James, it's Calvin from the excellent cartoon. I can't remember the name of the girl, but Calvin and the girl fell out, which means that they quarrelled. So you have to take account of the complexities here of how words are used in different contexts to signify different things. Now, how are you going to learn these multi-part verbs? I want you girls to do it in this order. Number 1, I want you to go to Quizlet, where you will find 3 sets, type 1, type 2, type 3. I want you to learn the meaning as a vocabulary item, the meaning of the multi-part verb as a vocabulary item. And of course, I want you to note, remember, learn the type of phrasal verb that it is, so you know how to use it in your speaking and writing. And then number 2, you're going to practice in your grammar book, Unit 22. Do not try to do your grammar book before you have learnt them in Quizlet. It is very difficult to do so, and you'll mostly be unsuccessful or largely unsuccessful. Learn them first in Quizlet, okay, and then help to test yourself and revise through working through the exercises in Unit 2, okay? And then 3, apply your understanding by using at least 5 multi-part verbs, at least 1 for each type, in your Slumdog Millionaire movie review. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful, and good luck.